So, hey everyone. If you're just tuning in, also welcome to Now Play This Festival. The festival this year is exploring the relationship between play, games, and the climate crisis. I'm Sebastian Quark. I'm director of Now Play This, and today our program is asking the really basic question, what do you need to have fun? These days, one of the places to go to consider this question is TikTok, especially the folk games people play on TikTok. And to talk to us about TikTok, folk games, and the ingredients of fun in these strange times is Danny Hawk. Danny Hawk is a game designer, developer, adjunct professor based in Brooklyn, New York. He's a co-founder of the folk game Game Jam and is currently working on Bird Town, a comedy adventure video game about a town of birds. Hey, Danny, welcome to the festival.
Hello, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Danny, you've recently published also an essay about folk game TikToks in Holly Gramazio's book, New Rules, about play in the pandemic. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to chatting about what makes these folk games on TikTok special. Before we kind of dive into the conversation, we decided to just watch a bunch of TikToks. Yeah, maybe Joe Summers, who is also with us in the virtual control room, take it away. Should give them all the TikToks.
Oh, wow. Get there? Oh.
Oh, for goodness sake.
Oh.
It's a nice effect there.
Yeah.
Dude, put your hand like this. That hand. I don't have no control over my left hand. Oh, bro! Chill.
This is so good.
Oh. I have no control. I'm done.
You're trash.
You trash! Talk about me. I'm done. Oh my god.
So I saw this girl play I Spy with this filter, and I want to do it too. So let's go. This one should be pretty easy, but. Where am I? You can't find me. I'm so sneaky.
So good.
Hide and seek. I'll tell you when to close your eyes, and then I'll tell you when to open them. Close your eyes. Fuck. Okay, I'm gonna die. Open them. Whoa!
Why?
I know driving by my car, and the road is not so far. But in London, Moscow too. It's my love, I tell you true. When I came to Poland, I saw my car was stolen. It was my favorite truck. I said, fucking kurwa mać.
Hey guys, welcome to the Red Wine Golden Retriever Challenge.
お前ほんまにやばい。
もうさ、なんもないやん。ガチか。
いやえうわそれはやばい。いやーごめん
So this very last part assumes that the loan maturity will not be reduced. So how many months remain?
Oh, wow. Get there. Oh. I think that's a.
Yeah, that's where we started. Great. Yeah, really cool. So maybe before we chat about wait, I have to turn off the audio. Okay. So before we get into individual TikToks or, maybe what you love about each one or discussing them, maybe we can start really with basics. How did you get interested in TikTok, or what is TikTok for people who don't use it? What makes it special, or what drew you to it?
Yeah, TikTok has it definitely has a reputation right now of just being the youngest generation only, the home for the Zoomers. And I didn't also realize until I was researching in this past week how recent TikTok actually is as an app being launched. So it was it officially launched in 2016, but that was just in China. And then they launched it globally in 2017, but only took off when they took over this app called Musical.ly, which is a lip syncing app. So they acquired it and then just merged the apps together into TikTok. So it was 2018 was the first year where suddenly it was gaining quite a bit of ground, in the US, of which I was first kind of starting to see it, while it was already huge before. But it's a social media video sharing platform in a way that is kind of how social media, Silicon Valley has been pushing in recent years, which is let's remove chronological feeds and just kind of make it so the algorithm will show you what you like we decide what you like and then we'll show it to you. And that's what TikTok is built from the ground up on, is that it is a feed of videos posted by users all over the world, and it is just deciding based on weighing a bunch of values like other TikToks you've watched to completion or liked, or what language you speak, or other audios you've liked or sounds, and showing you videos just in this feed called the For You page, just as an infinite scroll. videos. And then the other like key piece of it is that it's audio based, and that it like in the roots of the kind of lip syncing app Musically, you could pick a song and then you would sing along to it. In TikTok, you can pick audios, which are often songs, often music, but also often just the audio of someone else's video that you can then have as your audio track that you can then speak over, or, like, in the original version, kind of like sing along to. But that kind of creates this like organic categorization for trends as videos are being shared around. So 2 billion people have downloaded it. So it's much bigger than just the youngest generation. Yeah. And the kind of base format, is there a maximum length or something like that for the types of videos, or that varies? Yeah. There's varied lengths that you're allowed. And I think it's kind of like up to a limit that is much longer than what people kind of show as its predecessor, which is Vine. Vine was 6 seconds. TikToks can be up to, I think, like a minute plus, maybe. I think about a minute is where it tops out. Yeah. Yeah. Do you remember when you kind of found out for yourself, hey, this thing with folk games on TikTok is really interesting to me? Like maybe the first one that you saw where you thought, this is super cool? Yeah, I was learning about folk games very much in tandem of just being on TikTok. I downloaded it a few years ago and started like learning the language to call these games kind of folk games, as I was just seeing. I don't know if I can remember the very first game, but some of the ones first downloaded were maybe like the shoe flinging one, where they're flinging their shoes right there before hitting the edge, which is just a beautiful game. And I think starting to differentiate between using the word like on internet, they often just like, or on TikTok, they use the word trend or challenge or game or like a meme interchangeably for how it's like, you'd be like, oh, try this new challenge or this new meme. But then just kind of applying the word game to it and just being like, they're all games. My definition is incredibly loose for games. And definitely it's always been there, but I've only really started kind of noticing it being used a lot more in I think the last year and maybe year plus, where people are really like linking audios to games that you play and challenges, and then that kind of will then surface it again for users in the same kind of, if you play this game to this song, then someone has a video to that song, like they'll keep showing you that video as like a new user, like in different videos, and then often it's because it's the same trend. Mm-hmm. So I mean, one thing that struck me when looking at the selection that you made, or the thread on Twitter that you put together of these TikToks, is the kind of incredible, really simplicity of the materials often, like before it goes into all the tech and the music and this kind of stuff. So maybe we can talk a little bit about what, what is commonly used, or why certain materials are maybe interesting. Like, do you have a theory, like what type of materials are actually good for folk games on TikTok or common? Yeah, I think there's definitely a few things. The first is that usually, like, you can get away with a great game with absolutely no materials. And with folk games in general, it's materials that are very commonly just around you in homes. I think eggs come up often. Mm-hmm. Eggs have come up often for years and years and years in folk games. There's the game where you place the egg on the end of a spoon, and then you have to race to the other end without like breaking your egg. So then it's just like kids running from one line to another, and they're trying to hit each other's eggs. So you're trying to keep like, save yours, but also not spilling it over. And eggs are just like around. They're cheap enough, ubiquitous enough across country and culture that I think those are used a lot. And then other things that are like used kind of like unique to TikTok maybe is how they're often using a lot of filters from Instagram, Snapchat, and TikTok to create their own kinds of games with the tech, and like it's very, smartphone interfacing in that way. And that because all these platforms let you download videos, you just download the video and then upload it to TikTok. So often when there's a new fun thing that people are doing, people are like in the comments being like, where is this filter? I can't find it. They'd be like, oh, it's often Snapchat or whatever. But yeah, it's often truly just what is in the room with you right now when you're with somebody else or by yourself.
Yeah, and I mean, quite a few of the ones that we saw are also really using features of the room, not only things, right? Like from the really tiny things like chairs or the street, but also this huge thing like with the windmill, or the like medium-sized ones where the ball is just flying around. So I guess it's also a sense of discovery that's just so infectious in this.
Yeah, definitely a sense of just like play and just anything that has interest in the space around you almost, which often I guess in these kind of linked by like movement, the balls floating around on the like air conditioning unit, or the windmill moving, or just like a balloon in your living room that you can keep up. It's the best part I think about games is the way your space augments it, or you augment the space.
Yeah, so there's already a question from the chat, which kind of leads us anyway into the next topic about performance. So like, what do you think we can learn from TikTok about players' performance? Which is just what we wanted to talk about.
Yeah. By the way, that is my co-founder for the Folk Game Jam as well.
Okay.
Emily
Okay.
Coots, yeah.
So he's in the know.
Yeah, she's great. Yeah. Another folk game aficionado. But definitely the performance is huge in a way that I think is less direct than like popular culture likes to attribute to like influencers or social media. And that I feel like early ideas about social media and performance and just like being always online has a lot to do with kind of like being like you are a performer, that you are just have a persona and are acting, as opposed to the way it just kind of having any audience, having any eyes on what you're doing will change how you act. In the same way that I think playing a game, like if you're playing tag and you have people around you, you might play it very differently than if it's a one-on-one, just like, you know, you can't play tag with two people. I guess you can, you absolutely can. But if you're in a duel with two people and it's very insular, then it's just, you're only focused on the other person and you're only focused on, you know, what is the emotionally intelligent thing to do here? If I'm way better at you at chess, should I just crush your soul so you never play again? Or should I try and like maintain this game? I think this applies in a very similar way in how you're performing online, especially in TikTok, where you kind of post a video not for your followers, but post a video for like send it off into the ether and see what happens as TikTok just like focus groups tests your video until it maybe achieves some kind of popularity.
Yeah, so one that's really cool about, like in that sense, is maybe the hide and seek one. Maybe we can just watch that one again, the one where the guy like climbs on top of the
hide and seek. I'll tell you when to close your eyes, and I'll tell you when to open them.
Joe, do you have that there? I think it's called hide and seek in there. Okay.
Gonna die. Open them. Hide and seek. I'll tell you when to close your eyes, and I'll tell you when to open them. Close your eyes.
Yeah, so the first time I watched it, I of course followed his instructions to close my eyes and stuff. So now I've watched it without, like, by cheating for the first time.
Yeah.
And it's just, to me, it's just so interesting how the performance is kind of on both sides of the screen here. Like, you're actually part of that dynamic yourself by kind of buying into, like, this is really a folk game that like goes through the screen. And others are really about the groups, I guess, that are performing in front of the screen or something. Yeah,
it's really interesting. I think a lot about, and like this was a huge, reading the Well Played Game from Bernie DeKoven was a huge like moment when I was just like first learning about folk games. But it shifted my mind into thinking about games and play as like competition or, you know, systems of mechanics, to being more about like the emotional intelligence and awareness of who else is playing and being like providing something for them. I think this actually, there's a lot in TikTok of like, you're not really performing for the people in your life or like your Instagram followers that just know you, you know, specifically, but you're kind of making a video for the general public of people who will probably have the cross section of interest in a lot of things that you do. And so it's almost like creating like a gift, being like, here, I'm gonna make a game right now so that you can enjoy it. You know, I'm gonna try this filter out this green screen and hide it and make I Spy, and I'm laughing because it's so funny to me. and then other people are laughing as well as they're, you know, engaging with it. There's a lot more kind of direct interaction that is similar to almost like Twitch streaming, where you're like interacting with chat, except there's a huge delay between I'm posting it and then there's then all the comments come. And then a way that the veneer is a little different.
What's going on in this I Spy video? I don't get it.
Okay.
So I saw this girl play I Spy with this filter,
I Spy.
and I want to do it too. So let's go.
Yeah, so
this one should be
there's
pretty
a
easy.
filter called green screen on TikTok where you can just upload an image from your phone, and then, you know, like it'll detect where your face is and then green screen out the background. So a lot of people will be like, here's a tweet, and then some people kind of like stand there and be like, this is funny, but then this is they're shrinking themselves down as tiny as possible onto like actual I Spy boards, and then just placing themselves where they think works best. I think 2 is brutally difficult, but I think third one is actually easier.
Cool. Here's a cool question from the chat that fits in quite nicely. Also, it seems like a lot of these games have visual self-explanatory rule sets. Have you found any trends with folk games and the way they're tutorialized on TikTok?
Yeah, it's very similar to how games are, like folk games are spread in general, which is that the games that spread like easiest are games that you can explain either in a few sentences or can learn just by watching. And most of those exist that way, but also a lot of times there will be like just text, you know, captions on top of the video. That will be, you know, 3 steps for like the rules of the game. I know there's one of where it's like rule number 1, feet planted on the ground. Rule number 2, take turns slapping. Rule number 3, try and slap each other, kind of thing. What like also like kind of links into the performance of it is that so much of what maybe makes these videos in particular go viral, or like these ones particularly be of these games, the ones that are shared, is that they are the ones that, you know, self-evidently show the rules. It's like capturing the moment that shows, you know, this is, you know, the tension and this is what happens when you smash an egg with your hands, kind of thing. Or even just kind of let you sit there for 20 seconds being like, what is going on? And then also like really enjoy the, like, you know, beach balls like floating around on top of the air conditioning unit. It's the same, you're lulled into almost the same sense of like play as they are. But the shorter, the better. But that's not like a hard rule. Like folk games are like in the same way that all games, it's just truly what is, you know, most fun for people to engage with. There are plenty of games that are incredibly complicated, and like that's kind of the point. But then it's very much up to the communities to really teach people the rules, or, you know, in TikTok, like post a follow-up video, you can respond to comments now. So someone will be like, what are the rules? And then in the next video, you have their comment and be like, here's the rules.
So one thing that I find really interesting is this tension between this sort of transparency and simplicity of the game. So they work because you get them, they work because you kind of see how they work, see how they're made, you could potentially do them yourself. And then you have this like complete opposite, like the totally intransparent system, right? That's kind of giving you something to look at, that's, you know, measuring your responses and stuff, where you have no way of knowing how it really works, how the algorithm works, what's going on behind the scenes. And so I wonder like how you see this kind of, do you see that as a tension, or do you see like it as an add-on somehow that amplifies each other? Like how would you describe this relationship between TikTok and the games?
I think that tension is huge and like truly more ever present on TikTok than maybe any other social media platform I've ever used. In that it is all about like, you know, the algorithm, capital T, capital A, you know, choosing for you what you're going to see. The tension, it's really interesting in that because TikTok is kind of from the ground up built to be entirely, you know, algorithmically selected videos to show you that they're deciding, to the degree where they will show videos to you upwards, I think, of 3 months old, as long as they kind of think that your, you know, Venn diagram overlaps high enough with it. You can follow individual creators, but they will also show those to you wildly out of order, to the like a 1 month old video from one person before, a 2-day old video from another. And it kind of creates it in a way that I attribute a lot to also just, a generation raised entirely in the internet age and online, that there is a literacy and fluency with the way the algorithm works on TikTok that people then also game and also play. So in the kind of the way I feel like we adjust to the systems that we're within, games in real life are often, you're making the rules for the area around you. The goal is between that tree and that stove, or like grill or whatever. Well, we can't, if the ball goes over the fence, then, whoever like kicked it over there has to run after it. You immediately adjust to kind of your surroundings. And the same thing happens on TikTok, where people will post 2 almost identical videos being like, as like a poll of whichever video takes off and more people like and watch, that must be the true opinion of the mass. Or they will post a video with no hashtags in it, to be like, if you saw this video, you're meant to see it, because there's no other algorithms driving it besides like my voice, no audio, just me. So if you saw it, it's like it was meant for you. And also in the way that people are very aware of the corporate, like how to get around it. People know that if you type words into the text on the TikTok video, it's going to screen all those words for you, and it won't surface videos with like bad words. So that's why every swear word or anything sexual is completely like gobbledygook, almost like numbers and like gamer speak, almost just like a complete change of what the word actually is. So then that also plays in with the like robot, Microsoft Sam or Siri voice reading these off now. Like they're trying to get them to read something appropriately, but it all just kind of like cycles and cycles until it's almost with like an understanding of the space that you're in and what is being allowed of it. Then you immediately game it and play it and maneuver around it in a way that is as free and almost even, I wouldn't argue more freeing, but definitely very distinct and different from like a Twitter or an Instagram, where it's about people you follow retweeting things onto your like timeline. And this kind of being more like teens posting videos with the expectation that most of their people they know in real life will not see it. And they'll like a lot of like, if you saw, like, if you know me in real life, no, you don't, like kind of thing. Like you didn't see this, or like, I'm going to tell a story about my dad. If you're my dad, keep scrolling, like that kind of approach.
Right. So the TikTok system is kind of also part of the landscape, then that you play with, kind of similar to these features like the windmill or things like that. It just kind of reacts in strange ways to your pokes, kind of.
Yeah, absolutely.
So here's another question from the chat. I find folk games notoriously hard to design because they're so context dependent. How do you approach it in folk game jams? Like, do you add extra structure or constraints?
It's almost the opposite of that. It's removing structure and constraints in a way that is even more surprising to me when we ran it, and that we think of the best way, and what we saw immediately, to make a folk game is to just keep playing games and changing it in the same way that you did growing up. And that, like, there's dozens and hundreds of versions of tag. Let's make our own version of tag. Well, we'll start by playing tag, but then what if you do this kind of thing? It's almost, you play first and then assign a rule for it and just like immediately test it and then pull it off. And then often very expressively, someone else will just be trying to do something in their own way. And because it is kind of like their personality is making them being like, oh, what if I did this with my eyes closed? Or I bet I could do this with my eyes closed. Or I bet you couldn't do it with your eyes closed. And almost like it'll self-balance if some people are better at something like tag or not. But to actually design a game, like a folk game, because it is, the soft requirements are that, you know, the rules can be said in a few sentences, and it uses like nothing around you almost, because it should exist everywhere. You know, you can play tag in any space, kind of thing. To do that, you almost have to just start from playing in general. Like when we ran the jam, we started by playing just other games and ran through a whole bunch of them. And then we kind of just ate some food and then kept playing some games, but now tweaked the rules, or just be like, oh, there's a chair there. What can we do with a chair? And then someone being like, what's a goofy thing I could do with a chair, or a fun thing? And then it snowballs in a way that very much is, it peaks and be like, oh, we're having so much fun, and then we're adding more stuff, or we're changing things, and it's like, oh, this is weird now. We kind of lost the fun, and then you go back to whatever version you had before, in a way that, I don't know, in like a game design practice, it's very much, you know, we're moving away from have a design document, this is how the game works, and then, you know, make it, to iteratively, you know, making a prototype and then testing it, see if it's fun or not. To, I think this is even further being just play, and what works or what was successful, then you kind of can assign it as being like, that's the game, or those are the rules, that cross section is what works. And people will also just naturally, if they see a game and you'll be like, this is the game, we had so much fun, and they'll like take it and just be like, yeah, but I'm not going to play with that rule. That was kind of annoying. I'll just do it my own way. And then they'll teach it elsewhere. And then, you know, the joy is that you have no control over that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm assuming that the folk game jams were mostly in real life events, kind of pre-pandemic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, what's interesting about it is that like what you need is this sort of density to have these sort of, you know, the massive interactions that allows you to inspire and to kind of build off of each other's stuff. So maybe it's a good point to also talk about like what changed in the pandemic, or how kind of TikTok folk games maybe got a different vibe or something in the pandemic. I guess it also explains some of the reactions that you got to collecting them. It's just so like a relief in the pandemic.
People were so happy to just see, you know, play, especially somewhere outdoors, somewhere pre-pandemic. But folk games, I think they adapt. People play existed before people did. Play existed before culture. Games existed before, you know, language. In a way that, you know, animals play games. Your dogs know how to play with each other. And that's kind of like almost the first space that anybody gets into. They'll, you know, make up a game, or they'll make up a fun thing to do, or a trick. I think a trick is a great like atom of games often, and being like, oh, I wonder if I can bounce my clicky pen off of this countertop onto that countertop. And that's a game now, but bouncing the clicky pen is the trick. The same thing applies both in digital spaces. So we saw this happen, you know, COVID hit globally at the same time that Animal Crossing was released, and Animal Crossing was, you know, more playground than you know, like soccer field, I guess, like official. It was, people started making a lot of games within there, and oftentimes it would just be like, can we play tag in Animal Crossing, or can we play hide and seek in Animal Crossing? And just assigning their own games to it, and then people will kind of make their own games that use the verbs that exist in Animal Crossing, instead of having to kind of translate game from space to space. And the same applies and exists in multiplayer online spaces for a long time. Among Us was huge for this. People were creating variants, would be more the word used to attribute to, like, you know, a digital folk game there than like you would say maybe a new game. You're not making, people would really think of it as like a different game in Among Us, but they're playing Among Us, but everybody's allowed to only say one word, or everybody names themselves a color that's not the color their character is. And on TikTok, and the way that games change is that they often were like, to be like, I don't know, nostalgic for the early months of quarantine, but a lot of people were very creative with their, you know, 6 weeks in, they're being like, oh, what can we do? Let's play this game as a family, and, you know, start picking up this thing, or they maybe did that one night and then they recorded another day, which I think was like kind of the Keep Up Balloon League, which turned into a TikTok account of just dozens and dozens of videos of the different matchups between people in that house, that family, playing this, just keeping a balloon up off the ground. Things became very much more in a house. Things became very much more like what I have around me right now. And then they also, I think, took maybe another step and pushed towards it's becoming a game between me and you, like whoever's watching this. I am alone. How can I, I'm playful. I want to play a game. How can I make a game? I'll climb up on my bookshelf and hide, and call it I Spy, because I can't play I Spy with my literal friends in real life right now. And that decentralized like connection, I think, is maybe one of the most interesting pieces of this, and that it's not Zoom hide and seek, even though that'd probably be great. But it is kind of, here's my singular point of hide and seek, and I spread it out to everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that's fascinating to me is that in a lot of these, it's a lot about like what the possibility to lose something, like the kind of risk element in there, like, even starting from the eggs or like falling off this, like how kind of challenge and game, I guess, bleeds into each other, where you sort of really also, I was thinking about on the Zoom phase, maybe we can have a quick look at the Zoom phase. TikTok as a good example of kind of a digital one. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's something that everyone sometimes feels like they want to do. And the risk is, of course, being discovered, I guess, there, or being, having something to lose socially. And I wonder, like, when I look at the more real world ones, for example, the one where where the people are throwing the shoes like up to this edge. I don't know how deep it's there, but like you can actually lose your shoe.
Yeah.
Then, yeah.
My bet is it's probably like 10 feet. It's not that far, but does it feel like a skyscraper? Yeah, I think Zoom is an amazing example of a context where you have very few options for what you can like functionally use it to make a game. But because that's just where we are now, everybody has been just throwing themselves at how to play within the space on Zoom, to the point where even like the grid on when you have a whole big meeting of a lot of people, that is different per client. So you can't like pass things around or change, or like high five knowing who's going to be next to you. But people still are just, how can I scream while muted and nobody notices? How can I like slowly change my backgrounds, or people setting their virtual background as their actual background, but it's them like 10 minutes into the meeting being like, coming in from the outside, or like, like punching themselves or something. I think almost the incredibly strong constraints of Zoom is a pressure cooker for everybody just being, well, I need to have fun because I can't have fun in the same way I could in a hallway or, at a water cooler, or I don't know, where people work.
Yeah. At the same time, like I can't help but think that if there were only Zoom folk games, that would be really horrible. And there's this kind of nostalgia in there about just kind of touching things and, having actual material accidents that are just, outside of the screen, that are just really special to me when I watch these. So maybe it's if there's any more questions in the chat, happy to add them in now. Like I have a few more questions about to discuss maybe about like the future of folk games, or the future of this weird connection between this sort of worldwide media machine and folk games. Like, do you have like any ideas where this will head, or what, what's the next step in this evolution?
Yeah, I think the roots of what's kind of happening now and the speed of what is happening definitely are from like almost a decade ago now, I guess. I like to think of the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. I don't know if this ever left America as like a Facebook trend, but that was just record a video of yourself dumping ice water on over you to like ostensibly raise awareness for Lou Gehrig's disease. But that was, everyone I knew in my life had done it or been tagged or known somebody. And that was a very much, it had to be a chain. It started from a singular person that we could track because they tagged everybody on Facebook and then went out from there. And that now the iteration, like the rapidity of it is almost like merging between, the way memes work, the way, trends are just like jokes or just being online, subtweeting about someone else's tweet. Like you just assume that people will have, like a general populace will have knowledge of whatever you're referencing. And then that makes gives you the context for whatever you do that makes sense. So that it's almost spreading these games way faster than happen in real life. It's also maybe stripping away more of the, localized, community rules for them, the way that there are certain games that have, whether we can study, have folk games that have arisen and simultaneously people have just arrived at the same concept for a game, like tag, or whether they actually did just spread across the globe and throughout culture. And now that's actually happening digitally, then you almost know where it's coming from. But at the same time, it's also because you are seeing whoever showed it to you first. It's almost being even stripped more of, you won't know the name of somebody that taught you that game unless you liked or tagged or saved the video. It will be gone forever. You'll just know it as a game in your head, and you'll no longer be able to be like, my friend taught me this game and they learned it at camp, and then they learned it from that camp counselor, learned it from this other person, which learned it actually from a book. That it's both. It's truly, in my mind, it's happening faster. It's happening with less language about it, specific language. We're not always at a playground, so we're not always going to call it a game. We are now online, so we might call it a challenge. That there was the golden retriever red wine challenge. The sentence that was said in that great TikTok, and not game, because she's in front of a camera phone filming her. So
welcome to the red wine.
The common language for that is that's a challenge. That's the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. That's the mannequin challenge. And I think in the future, I would hope on just as game designers and games historians, we kind of make sure we expand our knowledge and our vocabulary for what is a game, and look at trends and memes almost as very much kind of games and with rules being played. But also in the future, I think there's going to be even more the speed at which they proliferate is faster, but I don't think as ephemeral. I don't think you can think of it as the way that a meme is kind of like a joke, and the jokes can be played out, but games are, I don't know, fun. And a formalist approach of games is that you can't spoil a game because it's always going to be fun from the mechanics and the rules. Your story is always going to be unique in your experience. So then it's just more so, I think people are learning more games and playing more games at a way faster rate. And you'll almost, especially when we emerge from quarantine, there'll be a lot more kind of, I think of, oh, I learned this game, or I saw this video on TikTok, let's try it. Especially as it becomes, everybody just ages up and it becomes less novel to be like, oh, my kid is the one that watches those TikTok dances and learns those dances. And it's more kind of I saw a game, let's play it. Yeah.
Do you have any, I mean, I think it's interesting, you mentioned the kind of ephemerality of of them, and the question of like folk game history and things like that. Like, do you have any plans in that direction, or do you like, what do you think is kind of is there a role for kind of still collecting or somehow building structures around these practices, or do you think that's like fine, it's just fine if it just flows in these networks?
Yeah, I think like a structural approach from someone kind of trying to design a folk game, I think is maybe a really tough endeavor and maybe a little misled. But I think maybe where the structures that I view, you know, like how do we foster this, how do we support this, how do we, you know, be aware or, you know, preserve, you know, the fun and the play. You know, if this is a moment, how do we recognize it and keep it going? Even though I think it will exist for forever. I think a lot of it is more understanding the structures of the platforms we're creating, with an understanding of like play exists always. And in a way that is a lot more akin to kind of like how to kind of like more understandingly develop a space and design a space like a playground or paths, is to just see how people are using it and then support them in the way of play. That I think TikTok was just incredibly lucky. I don't truly believe that they had any idea of the way they were structuring systems that were then going to just spread like jokes, trends, you know, dances is like the from the outside you can see, you know, people know TikTok dances, people learn dances from TikTok, people are making them and sharing them. That anything can spread so fast and so organically on their space. I don't think that was ever the goal. I think it was much more akin to kind of the Silicon Valley being like, what if we made a platform where let people like sing along to their favorite songs? And then they just happen to get really lucky that structurally they are creating an avenue for no self-selected bubbles. They're algorithmic bubbles, and that, you know, TikTok shows you specific videos. And I know the algorithm, they say purposely, you know, will show you things from what they think are outside of your certain bubble if they decided your interests. But in a way that now suddenly it's just kind of everything ever might have a chance of escaping kind of your own self-selected sphere, that then it's just created a completely decentralized network for just like sharing games, sharing plays, sharing jokes, which often results in just being like, you know, that's a cute video of a dog. But sometimes it's like, oh, I have that, you know, that same exact spatula in my kitchen. What if I also try and, you know, fling a plunger onto a stool or something like that?
Yeah. Cool. So I think we're running to the end of our session slowly. I'll just check if there's any more like direct questions in the chat. Maybe this one. Which features are present in the TikTok games you consider best? So maybe that's a good place to close. Like, what's the best?
What's the best TikTok?
What's the best one?
I am personally, and this might just be a product of having been on TikTok for, you know, just so many hours. I love a TikTok that presents itself as a game, where it's like you just don't know what the rules are and it keeps getting weirder or nonsense. My favorite all time is this video of maybe I think 3 or 4 boys playing basketball on their street corner, and one of them, you know, throws up to like shoots and misses, and then someone else grabs it like they're gonna keep playing basketball and like rebound it, but then they just like grab it and start running the other way, and then someone like comes out from behind the bushes and steals the ball away from them, and the person they stole it away from isn't, you know, torn up about it. They just keep sprinting in that direction, and the person with the ball is like running in the other, and you're like, is this how Korea is this? And then it's just like, did they, you know, block it out? Was this a script? Did they hit, you know, say like go, or was it really just they're kind of like very playfully just trying to be like, what's the most nonsensical thing I can do? That's my own bias, but I think the best games are probably the ones that are also attached with a very good story of that happening in that game. I think the Tupperware where there's alternating hands, you know, to either grab or just tap the Tupperware, is just a beautiful video for the story of, you know, what happened in there. You know, they're like, oh man, you're really terrible at this, or like you sucked, or they switch seats in between different takes, which is definitely, you know, one of them was just like, oh, it's so much easier with my left hand or my right. I think that's beautiful. That's the recipe is, I don't know, just have better players than game.
Cool. So yeah, thanks a lot for this really interesting conversation. Are there any things that you'd like to point people to, like where they can maybe find stuff or, you know, look at further things in this area?
Yeah, I mean, I tweeted a bunch of them. I think if you just want to download TikTok, you can download TikTok, and your first feed will be foreign and weird and different because it has no data on you before it starts, you know, deciding what you like or not. And then you'll often see games there. But I think, I don't know, next time someone asks if you want to play something or try something, or they giggle at something, just be like, yes, and then go and do that instead. I think that is probably the ideal way. There's no good, like, here's a library of folk games, you know, and here's, you know, answer 15 questions about what you're looking for here, and this would be the perfect game to play. I think it's just kind of keep playing games, and I don't know, they'll come to you. It's a terrible answer, but it's also, I don't know, go out there and have fun.
Right. And it's also about creating stuff yourself, mainly, and not relying on some rule book or like, this is the right way to do it.
Yeah.
So
see something that looks fun, just literally try it. Yeah.
Great. So maybe let's leave it there. I want to just take a moment to point to some of the other things that are still available in our topic today. What do you need to have fun? So if you're in the mood for like looking at more folk games or more really kind of primal ways to play, maybe now's a good time to watch The Land, the short edit from Aaron Davis documentary, which is really about this sort of, yeah, you could say it's about folk games or folks play in an adventure playground involving fire, ropes, really spontaneous invention of all kinds. So that's really inspiring to me to watch. And also, if you haven't tried it like yet, go outside, play Repurpose on your phone. And yeah, tomorrow we switch a little bit, switch gears, and go into things that are a little bit more structured and directed, where you have a clear job, which is to save the world, fix the climate. A little bit the opposite end of the spectrum, I guess, in terms of structured, directed forms of play. So that'll be interesting. Have a look at the program then, and yeah, see you tomorrow. So thanks, Danny. This was a pleasure, and good night, everyone.